However, we may have Dr. Menchi Ambalong, one of our presenters earlier.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you very much for giving Mindanaoans your captive market. Captive attention pala, Mr. President. Now, I was one of the speakers this morning representing the consumers and the women sector. The consensus points that we reach out of the 6 discussants are the following. 1, no to privatization of the Agus Pulangi. Mr. President, you mentioned about inefficiency. No, because even if the NPC people are given the least amount of money from PISAM, Agus Pulangi earn a minimum of 7 billion pesos annually. And so, in other words, in terms of funds, to rehabilitate, re-operate, maintain Agus Pulangi, there is this fund. So much so that the people of Mindanao, we have discussed that, and presented by Congressman Climaco.
Can you directly go to the point, please?
Presented by Congressman Climaco, the setting up of a Mindanao Power Corporation to answer the President of what we are going to do. Anyway, those things can be arranged later. Also, Mr. President, you mentioned about rehabilitation. Actually, we're paying for rehabilitation from our environmental fund, the universal charge. The PISAM was able to collect 1 billion plus pesos from us consumers.
Can you directly go to the question?
2000. No. I'm just pointing out the things that we have.
Ma'am, I got the message already. But can we have the question?
The second consensus point, Mr. President, is that stop the Leyte Mindanao Interconnection Project. The third is no to privatization of the power barges. The fifth proposal was that there should be encouragement or development of consumer empowerment. And last, that the PBR of the ERC should be revisited and studied because it has caused the increase of the electricity rate annually. Thank you.
Can I just, I'm curious lang. May surplus, there are surplus in the reserves from both Luzon and Visayas. They are presently interconnected. You said you don't want to be interconnected. You have a shortage. You can get from once it's there. Once the submarine cable is in place, you can draw from the surplus. Why don't you want to draw from the surplus?
The UP National Economic Center study that in 4 to 5 years' time, the generation that is being constructed in Luzon and the Visayas is not commensurate to a 5% to 7% demand growth of Luzon and Visayas. Leyte Mindanao interconnection will be constructed in 4 to 5 years' time. So much so that in 4 to 5 years' time, there is no power that can be transmitted from Luzon and Visayas to Mindanao. And that project will be charged to us consumers. In GCP, we'll spend for that, but we will pay for that.
Sige, pero sa totoo lang, ngayon may surplus. 4 to 5 years, sabi niya, wala. Kung nakakabit na yung cable previously, yung shortages nyo could have drawn from the existing surplus. Yeah. Yun lang yung point eh. Pero if you want to be isolated, and I don't know how many of you want to be that isolated, ulitin lang natin you're assuming things will be constant. The scientists are telling us that they are not constant. They are in a period of flux. So that parang the ground will be changing. Yung premises nyo ngayon might not be valid then. And there is 15,000 megawatts that we have to have by 2030. And you have about 11 of that already. There's 15,000 megawatts that are needed by 2030 for the entire country. We have approved 10,000 plus megawatts have already been approved. There's another pending 3,000. So yung study nila may pagka-pessimistic. Things remain relatively the same. We will have the power that we need even by 2030. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Yung pagkatapos nito, I have to go back to the Scarborough Shoal problem. No? So I hope you don't mind if we cut the dialogue here.
Mr. Viclao.
Mr. President, I would like to summarize, maybe in one sentence, the sentiment of what everybody discussed this morning. I think the people in Mindanao understand that we have to pay a little more if we need to upgrade our facility. What the people in Mindanao are worried is because the essence of IPIRA is basically to pay off the loan of NPC. Now, from what I have known, basically most of the assets are already gone, but the loan is still there. Now, what is the guarantee of the people in Mindanao that if Agos and Pulangi will be sold, the loan will disappear? So we will be forced to pay a higher electricity cost with no guarantee that we are going to contribute to solving the problem. That's basically what the people are saying. Because
So what's your
definitely-
one question? One question, big.
that's the one. Actually, we just want to support the proposal of Darlene, Mayor Antonino, that the one-stop shop really needs to be set in place, because you cannot underestimate the potential for investment of the private sector, which I think you're also tapping under the PPP. Because as what Secretary Almendra says, you need more than 100 signatures just to get even a 1 megawatt project to be in place. No? So we would like to open up this industry to the private sector. People who are willing to invest a few 100 million, maybe make half a kilowatt, half a megawatt, or 2 megawatts. If there's a proliferation of that in the countryside, I think, Mr. President, is going to contribute drastically to the pressure on the grid. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yung hindi nyo kailangang kumbinsihin doon sa bureaucracy. No? Yung people have been mentioning the power of the presidency. To be honest with you, pag tayo sa procurement, order tayo ng memo pad, it takes 4 months. At which point, when they're ready to deliver, the prices might not be the same. Talagang grabe ho yung dadaanan sa bureaucracy. So, we have been focused on how to reduce that. Yung DTI's one-stop shop is precisely a manifestation of that. So again, from what the executive can do, there are certain requirements that perhaps are not in our purview. They might belong to constitutional bodies. But from our end, we will be minimizing all of these things, and we will try to implement what you have been requesting, at the soonest possible time. Hopefully, we will have an idea of the timetable of full implementation by, hopefully by next week, but not later than 2 weeks. And I will call the concerned clusters of the cabinet to tackle that particular problem. Okay?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And that ends our program for this afternoon. We'd like to thank the President for his generous sharing of his time. Maayong hapon ka na
Ating pong natunghayan ang naging dialogo ng Pangulong Aquino with the stakeholders at ibang mga leader ng local government units dito sa Mindanao. Sinagot ng Pangulo ang iba't ibang mga katanungan at concerns ng mga ito. Ipinaliwanag niya ang naging utang ng Napocor at ang IPIRA law at ang pagiging unreliable ng hydroelectric source at kahalagahan ng paghahanap ng ibang pagkukunan ng enerhiya. Inanunsyo din ng Pangulo na ninanais din ng ehekutibo ang pagrebisa sa IPIRA law. Bago yan ay natunghayan natin ang speech ng Pangulo at uulitin ko lang just a short recap of what the President has said in his speech. Tiniyak ng Pangulong Aquino na ginagawa ng pamahalaan ang lahat para hanapan ng solusyon ng kakulangan sa enerhiya dito sa Mindanao. Inilatag ng Pangulo ang mga hakbanging isinasagawa ng kanyang administrasyon kabilang ng rehabilitasyon ng Agos, ang nakatakdang pagbuo ng Mindanao Power Monitoring Committee na pangungunahan ng Mindanao Development Authority at bubuin ng mga kinatawan ng mula sa Department of Energy, Napocor at National Grid Corporation of the Philippines at ang paghahanap ng iba pang pagkukunan ng kuryente. Aminado ang Pangulo na iba't ibang factors ang naging dahilan ng kakulangan sa kuryente dito sa Mindanao. Kabilang na dito nga ang lumolobong utang na napukor noong 2003 na nagkakahalaga ng 1.24 trillion pesos, ang pagtaas ng populasyon na nagresulta sa pagtaas ng pangangailangan sa kuryente, at ang climate change naman na nagresulta sa pagbawas ng hydroelectric sources, at syempre ang industrialization at economic growth ng Mindanao na nagresulta rin naman sa pagtaas ng demand sa kuryente. Ipinaliwanag din ng Pangulong Aquino ang dahilan sa pagtaas ng presyo ng kuryente na anyay magreresulta naman sa stable energy supply para dito sa buong rehiyon ng Mindanao. Ayon sa Pangulo, ang pagresolba sa kakulangan ng supply ng kuryente dito ay magreresulta sa pag-akit ng dagdag na investments, jobs creation at pagsiguro sa future ng mga Mindanaoans. Sinabi pa ng Pangulo na ang Mindanao ay hindi lamang land of promise. Ito ay gagawin niyang land of fulfilled promises. At samantala sa punto pong ito ay kasama natin si Yusek Aina Asirit ng Department of Energy. Magandang hapon po, ma'am.
Yes, magandang hapon po. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat.
Yusek, ano po yung naging resulta overall nitong Mindanao Power Summit?
Masasabi natin na yung pakay ng summit na ito, which is for everyone, for all the sectors to be able to express their sentiments, their proposals, actually came into fruition. And we will see that it happened that there were some conflicting resolutions and recommendations. There were some which were very simple actually to implement and which have actually been started already, while others necessarily will take a lot of study to be able to put into operation, or at least the mechanism to be able to implement those proposals.
Okay, nabanggit nyo nga po na habang isinasagawa ito ay meron naman pong mga hakbang na isinasagawa ang Department of Energy para tugunan itong kakulangan sa kuryente. Ano po ba yung short-term solution at yung long-term solutions na inyong isinasagawa?
The short-term solutions, yun na yung sinabi kanina ni Secretary Almendras, no, na hinikayat natin na yung lahat ng available na generation capacity ay talagang mailabas at magamit. Yun nga lang, meron itong kaukulan na dagdag na presyo, at I believe inulit ito ng Presidente, ng Pangulo natin, nung sinabi niya that everybody has a cost to bear, and there is a responsibility impressed upon each of the stakeholders, whether you're a consumer or an industry player.
Ano pong time frame ang tinitingnan natin para tuluyan ng masolusyonan 100% itong problema o kakulangan ng kuryente dito?
Yes. Kung time frame ang pag-uusapan, mahirap sabihin na we will solve the situation in terms of yung not having any brownouts within a matter of weeks or even months. Kasi ang problema talaga sa Mindanao, at nakita natin yon, yung wala tayong reserba. Okay? Kung tutuusin, ngayon, nandun pa lang tayo sa kung paano natin pupunan, no? Kung paano natin mabibigyan ng pagtugon yung basic niya na base load na demand. And with the tinatawag nating rehabilitation of some of our Agus plants, makikita natin that it will still take some time before we are able to get that comfortable, tawag natin na supply, na hindi na tayo magiging ipit kung sakasakaling merong masira unexpectedly na planta. But we have seen that in the past few weeks, when all of the power supply contracting was also being used, nakita natin na out of the iilan ng mga electric cooperatives that were experiencing brownouts, nabawasan ito. And we see that also becoming better, or hindi na masyado, in the next coming weeks pag yung mga provisional authorities nila will be released by the Energy Regulatory Commission.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Yusek Aina Asirit ng Department of Energy. Yan po ang naging tugon ng Department of Energy sa kasalukuyang kakulangan sa kuryente na kinakaharap ng ating mga kababayan dito sa Mindanao. At dyan po nagwawakas ang aming live coverage ng Mindanao Power Summit mula dito sa Waterfront Hotel sa Davao City. Bago po ako magpaalam ay nais po naming pasalamatan ang ilan sa mga tumulong para maging possible itong aming coverage. Wesley Gatchalian, Special Assistant to the President of the Waterfront Properties Incorporated, si Mr. Ruel Guanzon, Hotel Manager dito sa Waterfront, at syempre po ang PAGCOR. At sa ngalan po ng Presidential Broadcast Staff,